The footage nobody was meant to see. The video wasn't supposed to matter. It sat buried in a forgotten folder on a municipal server, tucked away among years of useless recordings. Empty roads, passing headlights, drifting fog. No one checked those files unless something went wrong. And for a long time, nothing ever did. Until one night at exactly 2:13 a.m., something stepped into frame. My name is Daniel Hayes. I didn't believe in things like this. Not ghosts, not monsters, not stories people told to make sense of fear. I believed in patterns, evidence, cause and effect. That's why I took the job. Small-town tech support, boring, quiet, predictable, perfect. Until the night officer Grant knocked on my door holding a flash drive and said, "We need you to look at something." We sat in the station's back office. Old computer, flickering monitor, the kind that hummed louder than it should. Grant didn't say much, just crossed his arms and waited. "Play it," he said. So I did. At first, it looked like any other roadside feed. Static, grainy darkness. A narrow road cutting through trees so thick they swallowed the edges of the frame. Timestamp blinking in the corner. 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 58 seconds. Nothing. 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 1 second. Still nothing. Then, movement. It walked into frame like it had always been there. Not from the side, not from the distance. Just there. One frame empty. Next frame. What you're looking at in that footage isn't just a strange event. It's a pattern. And patterns mean intention. The first thing that matters, the thing most people overlook, is the way the clown appears. Not walks in, not approaches, not emerges from the trees. It simply exists in the frame between one moment and the next. That detail changes everything, because it suggests this isn't a physical arrival in the way we understand movement. There's no transition, no build-up, no entry point. It doesn't respect distance or time the way a normal body would. One frame, empty road. Next frame, presence. That alone tells you something is fundamentally wrong. Not just unnatural, but operating under rules that don't match ours. Then there's the posture. Tall, thin, centered. Not wandering, not searching. Placed, perfectly placed. Dead center in the road like a marker or a signal. And that positioning matters more than it seems. Roads are human spaces, paths we create, controlled lines cutting through nature. By standing exactly in the middle, it's not hiding in the forest. It's inserting itself into our world, deliberately. The clothing adds another layer, not bright, not playful, not exaggerated. Instead, muted, stained, faded, almost like a memory of what a clown is supposed to look like rather than the real thing. Like something tried to recreate the idea of a clown, but didn't fully understand the purpose behind it. It chose the shape, not the meaning. And that's important, because it suggests imitation, not identity. Then there's the face. White, but not painted white. Described as too white. That distinction matters. Paint sits on skin. This looks like the skin itself is the color. Flat, empty, lacking depth. And the smile. The most disturbing part isn't that it's wide. It's that it's controlled, intentional, held in place like a fixed expression rather than a natural reaction. A human smile shifts. It breathes. It changes with emotion. This one doesn't. It stays, like it was chosen, and then locked in. Now look at its stillness. No movement, no blinking, no sway. Humans can't stay perfectly still. Even when we try, there's always micro-movement, breathing, muscle tension, balance adjustments. This thing has none. It's not standing still. It's inactive, like an object, or something waiting to be activated. And that leads into the most important psychological cue. It doesn't feel like it's waiting for something to happen. It feels like it already knows it will. That subtle difference flips the entire situation. Waiting implies uncertainty. Knowing implies control. Then comes the distortion. 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 22 seconds. The ripple, the loop, time repeating itself. That's not just a glitch, it's a signal. Because it happens at the same moment the entity is present. And it doesn't affect everything equally. The environment distorts. Time stutters. Unchanged. Which suggests something critical. The distortion isn't happening to it. It's happening around it. Almost like reality itself is struggling to process its presence, or being rewritten to accommodate it. And then, the car. This is where human behavior enters the pattern. The driver doesn't react immediately. That's realistic. At a distance, the brain tries to normalize what it sees. It fills in gaps, replaces unfamiliar shapes with familiar explanations. Person, costume. Someone needs help. And it's exactly what the entity relies on. Because by the time the driver realizes something is wrong, he's already too close. The moment he steps out of the car, the dynamic changes. Inside the vehicle, he's protected, separate, observing. The moment he steps onto the road, he becomes part of the scene, part of its space. And notice something else. The clown never initiates. It doesn't wave, doesn't approach, doesn't call out. It forces the human to make the first move. That's not passive behavior. That's controlled interaction. Hey, you okay? That line is important because it shows empathy, concern, human instinct, and that instinct is exactly what the entity exploits. The closer the man gets, the more he commits to the interaction, until finally, the clown moves. Just slightly. A head tilt. That movement is minimal, but it's enough, because it breaks the illusion of stillness. It confirms awareness. The man freezes, not hesitates. Freezes. That distinction suggests something neurological rather than emotional. Fear causes reaction, fight, flight, or freeze. But even freezing includes tension, breathing, micro-movement. This is different. This is shutdown, like a command has been executed, or a system overridden. Then comes the second glitch. Stronger, more aggressive, static flooding the screen. And when it clears, the clown isn't gone. It's closer, but not moving closer. Already there. That breaks physical continuity. It didn't cross the distance. It skipped it. And the man still doesn't react. No scream. No attempt to run. Because whatever happened during that glitch happened to him too. Then the cut. 6 minutes missing. That gap is one of the most disturbing parts, because it implies a process, something that takes time. Not an instant kill, not a quick disappearance, but something that requires duration. And when the footage returns, everything is reset. No car, no body, no evidence. That level of clean removal suggests precision, not chaos, not violence, but controlled extraction. Then comes repetition. Multiple nights, same time, same place. 2:13 a.m. becomes a trigger point. A window, a moment when the boundary between normal and abnormal weakens, and the entity uses it. Consistently. Sometimes nothing happens, which is just as important, because it means the entity doesn't act randomly. It waits for conditions to be met, specifically, a person, alone, close enough. And most importantly, looking. Eye contact becomes the key. Not proximity, not noise, not movement, but attention. If you don't look at it, it doesn't act. That theory changes everything, because it suggests the entity requires recognition, not just presence. Awareness, like it can't fully interact with someone unless that person acknowledges it, which ties into the idea of learning. Because once someone looks, they become data. That's supported by the later footage. The shapes behind it. Tall, still, watching. Those aren't random shadows, they're likely previous victims, or fragments of them, or something created from them. Which leads to the most disturbing conclusion. The clown is not a single entity. It's a collection, a structure built from people it has taken. And each time it appears, it's more refined, more controlled, more human. That's why, in the final encounter, it's no longer perfectly still. It's adjusting, improving. The smile stretches wider, not randomly, but experimentally. Testing limits, learning expression, and then it speaks. You came back. But the voice is Daniel's. That confirms everything. It doesn't just observe. It absorbs every person it takes becomes part of it, their voice, their behavior, their identity. And when it speaks, it's not speaking as itself, because it doesn't have a true self. It's speaking as the people it has consumed. What you're circling around in that passage is not just a creature or an event, but a process. Slow, deliberate, and disturbingly patient. Expanding it means leaning into that idea, that nothing here happens all at once, and nothing is as simple as it first appears. At the beginning, the imperfections matter. The voice not matching perfectly isn't just a technical flaw. It's evidence of transition. It suggests something that doesn't yet fully understand the shape it's trying to take. Imagine hearing a voice that feels almost right, but not quite. Intonation slightly off, pauses in the wrong places, emotion arriving a second too late. That delay creates unease, because it tells you there's a gap between imitation and understanding. Something is mimicking without fully comprehending. That's why the earlier audio feels layered or distorted. It isn't just poor quality. It's overlap, multiple attempts happening at once, fragments of different voices bleeding together as the system tries to reconcile them, like echoes that don't belong to the same source. It's not choosing a voice yet, it's testing them, stacking them, aligning them. You're hearing the process, not the result, and that process is learning, not in the clean, controlled way we usually imagine learning, but in a raw, accumulative sense. It gathers, compares, adjusts. Every imperfection is feedback. Every mismatch is something to correct. It's not static, it's actively refining itself in real time. When you say it's aligning memory with form, that's where it becomes more unsettling, because memory implies experience, something taken, stored, and reused. Form implies appearance, something external, visible, recognizable. When those two begin to align, it means the imitation is no longer surface level. It's not just copying how something looks or sounds. It's integrating how it behaves, how it reacts, how it exists. By the end, the improvement is noticeable. The voice stabilizes, the distortions fade, the layers collapse into something singular. That's when it becomes dangerous. Not because it's perfect, but because it's convincing. The human mind doesn't require perfection to believe something. It only needs enough consistency to stop questioning. The face becoming clearer follows the same pattern. At first, it's ambiguous, features blurred, proportions slightly off, expressions that don't quite land. But ambiguity invites interpretation. The viewer fills in the gaps, unconsciously correcting the image. And as the system refines itself, those gaps shrink. The corrections become smaller. The image demands less effort to understand. That's when it crosses a threshold. It stops being something you're observing and starts becoming something you recognize. Recognition is powerful. It creates familiarity, and familiarity lowers defenses. Once something feels human enough, the mind begins to treat it differently. It stops analyzing and starts accepting it's something assembled. Constructing a version of humanity from pieces is exactly the right way to frame it. It's not trying to replicate one person. It's aggregating many. Each interaction, each exposure, each victim contributes something. A voice pattern, a facial expression, a behavioral cue. None of these are complete on their own, but together they form something increasingly cohesive. That's why the line, "It doesn't kill, it replaces," matters so much. Because replacement implies continuity. If something is destroyed, it leaves a void, but replacement fills that space, so nothing seems to change, even though something feels off. The victims aren't gone, they're integrated, their traits absorbed and improved upon. Each loss strengthens the system, making this process literal, not symbolic. The clown is just a starting point, simple, familiar, and attention-grabbing. But as the system evolves, it abandons that form, becoming more human, more subtle, and more effective. This evolution is intentional, moving towards something indistinguishable from us. That's why "don't look" matters. Looking isn't passive. It creates a connection. Your mind tries to understand, and in doing so, you participate. The interaction lingers, not physically, but mentally, returning through curiosity. Each time you revisit it, the system refines itself using your perception. The danger isn't one encounter, but repeated attention. Over time, the line between observer and participant fades. You become part of the process. It doesn't need to chase you. It relies on attention, and the more you think about it, the more it grows, until what it creates becomes impossible to distinguish from what was real.